We are storytellers by nature, sharing with others what we experience, perceive, and believe of life, our joys, adventures, our losses. We tell ourselves stories as well. Some leave us trapped by false beliefs and self-doubt. But there are also stories of persisting, exploring, and rising above. Stories of uncovering the truth, enabling powerful transformation and triumph. These are those stories. These are your stories. Hello, folks. Welcome. It is time for And So It Is, Stories of Truth, Transformation, and Triumph. My name is Zoe DeMiro. My pronouns are he and him. I'm a spiritual counselor, a religious science practitioner with the New Thought Media Network, and a transformational coach. My ministry and my mission are to help people co-create their most authentic and most fulfilling life experience. It's my honor to bring this show to you the first Saturday of each month, 11 a.m. Mountain Time, 10 a.m. Pacific. If this is your first time, great to have you here. If you're returning, welcome back. You know, in each episode of this show, we hear about how people like you and like me have been held back by false and limiting beliefs, but then managed to uncover their truth. And that enabled them to transform their life experience and truly triumph, not in spite of, but because of their journey. So today's guest is Rev Michael Mangus. Let me tell you a little bit about him. And I do mean a little bit because he has a magnificent, wonderful career and journey. As a wedding minister, he's performed over 800 weddings in the past 18 years. And he's also a certified premarital counselor. He was ordained as a New Thought minister in 2013, licensed as a Center for Spiritual Living minister in 2022. He holds the highest amateur radio license issued in the United States, as well as a commercial general radio operator's license. Currently, Reverend Michael is active on the New Thought Media Network with his show, The Friday Evening Fireside Chat, as well as membership on the network's international prayer team. And he also serves as a show producer. Currently living in Akron, Ohio, with his practitioner wife, Diana. So, folks, buckle up. You're in for an interesting ride. And let me bring Reverend Michael in.
Oh, there I am.
There you are.
All right.
Welcome.
Just my headset. Hi there.
Thank you so much for being here.
Good to be on the show, and thanks for inviting me. Really appreciate it.
My pleasure. All right. So now that we know what we're doing, what we need to know is where are we starting with your story, Reverend Michael? Where can you give me a time and a place where we want to start?
Yeah, I think a good place to start was when I was in high school. I had a born again experience. For those of you in the Christian tradition, that means accepting Jesus or Christ into your heart. And then I was involved in a Catholic charismatic renewal group in the 70s. And when I graduated in 1977,
sorry about that.
When I graduated in 1977, I was starting to go to the University of Akron, and they wanted me to move in and to the live-in community. And something within me said, nah, that's not what I want to do. And so what happened is that there was kind of a falling away as far as myself and that form of spirituality. Over a period of months, what happened is that because I did not move in, they took away my spiritual director of 4 years, who I shared with weekly. There was a lot of things that happened, and that So for a while, I mean, I felt pretty lost. I felt, looking for something. I did not know, as far as with spirituality goes, I did not know what the next step was. And I remember going up to a bookstore in downtown Akron during my lunch break from the parking deck, which I worked as a cashier. And I went up there and I saw on the newsstand the Science of Mind magazine. So that was my kind of first step into religious science. Gosh, what year was that? I think it was like 1980, or 1979. So that was kind of my first taste. So, uh, so that was a significant life point. So I started going to a Unity church. I was married at the time. Um, I mean, uh, that's, I attended a local study group with the late Jean Mullane, who was a practitioner extraordinaire. And, and then another bump in the road happened. So would you like me to explain the bump in the road?
Oh, yes.
Okay. So the next kind of bump in the road was I was slowly but surely eating myself to death. So I well over 400 pounds. I was going to do that, and so I ended up in a treatment facility, uh, and in Richmond, Virginia. And for me that was a big turning point. I remember, like 2 or 3 days in, we were going through the steps of Alcoholics Anonymous,
Mhm.
the 12 steps. And so I didn't even wait for them to formally do the third step. I just remember just kneeling by my bed with my headsets on and going, okay, God, here's my life. And, trying to put my life into God's hands. This is all in my head now. Again, there was no bright light that that filled the room. I didn't have that kind of mystical experience, but something in me, in my head, the hands of God became the arms of God that wrapped themselves around me, and they said, "Welcome home." So
Mhm.
for me, again, that was another part of the journey. Whereas uh, I and as we were talking beforehand, I had taken all the years, unfortunately, of abuse at home with my alcoholic father and also at school because of my weight,
Mhm.
and had put it all inside me, and I just went ahead and said, and suddenly what happened is that lid, that Pandora's box lid, was ripped off, and then I had to deal with it. So
Mhm.
that's so I mean, so that was my kind of beginning, as far as with spirituality goes, and then I spent a good part of next year. The next kind of bump in the road was when I was, I think it was like 2000, excuse me, I'm sorry, like 1995, 96, where I was traveling with my then living girlfriend, and we were in San Francisco, and she said, "I don't love you anymore."
Mhm.
Now, here I'd been in recovery for 7 years. I'd been doing really well, working on my own issues, working on my inner child. Um, and I think for me, the learning point was that you there is no such thing as putting a level of spirituality over a bunch of pain. That the myth, I think, is that the spirituality will absorb all the pain. Well, not necessarily. That's been my experience. It's been that going back and safely experiencing the emotion, the pain, the letting it go, again, not to dwell in it, but to go back and to work through it, to come to a place of peace. And I think that's my greatest gift today is I feel peaceful inside, in which before I didn't. So, I'm coming back on the plane, coming back from San Francisco, and I went ahead and I stopped at in Boulder, in Denver, to see about maybe going to Naropa Institute. So I'm coming back, and I just felt really just really brokenhearted. No, I'm sorry. I came back to Ohio, and then I went on a trip to see a friend of mine up in Vancouver, and I was coming back to through Denver, and I went ahead and I purposely had a layover for a few days. So I went to Naropa Institute to see Naropa University to see about maybe continuing my education there. And I just remember just being on the streets of Boulder and just saying, you know what, I've done all this work on myself, and what do I want to do with the rest of my life? And I remember before I was going to call someone, and I remember before I went into the phone booth, that's when they had phone booths back then. Okay. Where you put a quarter in, and anyhow, before cell phones. So I went ahead and asking that question, the word that came from my soul depth was ministry. And I said, God, no, not that.
Considering where you started from a religious perspective, I can certainly understand that.
Yeah, it's like I don't want to do that. Because I had gotten that call before, and a lot like the character from the Old Testament, Jonah, who went ahead and God wanted him to go to Nineveh, but he said, ain't no way. And then he got swallowed by the whale, and then said, okay, I'll go to Nineveh if I get out of this. So it was kind of one of those things, is that I needed a wake-up call to say, okay, if this woman's not going to be in your life, then what do you want to do with the rest of your life? And also, are you willing to do it alone? Are you willing to do it without a partner? Are you willing to do it? And I said, yes. So then it was soon after that I met Diana, my wife. Soon after that, I started attending a Science Mind Church up in Cleveland. I got into prac training, got out of prac training, was licensed in like 1999. And yeah. How far do you want me to go into the story? Keep going?
Well, we're gonna back up a little bit here.
Okay, go ahead. Okay.
All right. So what I've heard so far is that there have been a series of what you refer to as bumps. Okay. I think of those as any one of a number of things. They're obstacles, they're problems, they're circumstances, conditions, invitations. All right. So I'm curious as to how you managed to continue going. So you started off with this feeling of being kind of lost and not really having a lot of self-respect at all.
No.
But you were able to get past that.
Right.
So there's this sort of almost like a sine wave, if you will, of elevating as you learn things about yourself and release things that you discover not to be true.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then you kind of move along with that. Mm-hmm. And then you hit one of these so-called bumps. Okay. So how is it that you were able to continue as opposed to just feeling stopped?
All right. So a word that when I'm asked to consider my story, one of the things, kind of the themes for me, is resilience. So it reminds me of the story of the song, I get knocked down, but I get up again. And by the way, that's a drinking song from over over in the UK and also Scotland. You know, yeah. So I think for me, the whole idea of resilience, um, I could have, like I saw in many of the therapy groups and 12-step programs that I was in, especially among women, is that they had been involved in an abusive relationship or had been involved in several abusive relationships and said, no more. So I'm going to close my heart down.
Mm.
And for me, that was a lesson of, do I really want to live my life that way? So that kind of there's two types of stories in the Bible: do what these people do and don't do what these people do. And that's a common theme in all the great traditions, Buddhism, Hinduism. Again, the stories are meant to are transformational. They're meant to tell about the gods, the goddesses, about individuals, and that, again, that how with the help of deity that they were able to go through. So I, again, feeling all this pain from the breakup. I mean, I'm glad I was in counseling, because what happened is that, I I really wanted to go ahead and kill myself. And what stopped me from that was, again, wise doctors along the way. This one doctor said, I was in his office telling him what was going on with me. And he says, I'm not going to let you out of here until you tell me that under no circumstances are you going to take your life. And he emphasized that over and over again. He says, I'm going to prescribe you some medication, but you have to give me your word that once you leave this office that you will not do that. And I always remembered that, it's, again, that one of those kind of, wise people on the path that said, yeah, maybe this is a permanent solution to something that's temporary. So, yeah. And it's just, I'm glad I didn't make that choice. I had a friend of mine a few years ago take his life. And because his head stuff was saying that's okay. And so for me, that's meant, again, continuing with the counseling, continuing with my own personal self-growth. And so I think that's what I see as resilience, is, the ability to bounce back, the ability to get back up again. And I think that comes from inside of us. That's the God goddess in us that says, nah, there's something better here. And that I like what you said about the bumps in the road being an invitation for growth. And it's also choice points for me. Again, I could have just said, no way I'm going to be in ministry. And I know that for me, that, again, it was on my heart for a long time. And it was interesting, though, that once I said yes to that my life started to come together. And then there were some other things along the way too. But once I said yes to it, it was just, and the path, for me, again, the myth is that personal growth begins here and ends up here and is a straight line. That's not the case. And again, I was shown this in through my study group. It starts off like we have a peak and then it goes down, but the next peak, is not as bad as the is higher than the other peak that we had. So you go down, but you go up. So
Mhm.
that's, for me, that's been the path of growth, is that, again, not that straight line stuff. So, and I notice that in other people too. It's not a straight line. So, and again, for me, I want my life to reflect that no matter what you're going through, that there is that within you, whether you see it or not, there is that within you that can be resilient, that can bounce back, that can go ahead and to do something, again, not only with your life, but also to be an example for other people. So,
Mhm.
so anyhow, so then what happened was that after getting the prac license, I said, well, I want to go to Holmes Institute. And so I went ahead and I went to our regional, this is back in like 2000. I went to our regional campus, which at that time was in St. Louis. And I went there, and the woman was going, she was writing down notes, and then what happened was she says, "Where did you get your bachelor's degree?" And I said, "I don't have it." And an interview. And that's what happened. So I went back to school. I went back to Burlington College up in Vermont. I was able to get complete my degree, a bachelor's degree, and then in transpersonal, which is one of the few accredited places at that time. Burlington is closed down, but it was, again, a very wonderfully self-directed program. So after that, then I was working for the county. I was working with our spiritual group in Akron. We had we got teaching chapter status at that time. We were one of a handful in the country that got that. Teaching chapter status is different than in Centers for Spiritual Living. It's different in that you can have a practitioner lead it rather than a minister. So, but yeah, it was interesting because that I would go to conferences and I would tell them that I'm leading a teaching chapter, and I didn't have the words REV in front of my name.
Mhm.
And so unfortunately, I didn't get a lot of help from Centers for Spiritual Living or some of the ministers. Again, for me, this has been a path of growth. So what I started to do was I started to find other places where I could get help, and one of those places was International New Thought Alliance. I went to several of their conferences. They treated me like a colleague, and then in 2012, I met Bishop Carlton Pearson, who's no longer with us, bless his memory. And that through a couple of circumstances, I was able to get ordained as an independent New Thought minister. So and again, it got to the point within our organization where you could hold a prac license plus also ordination. At one time, you couldn't do that with another organization. And so in 2016, my time at the county had ended. Reverend Dr. C.C. Coltrane went ahead and said, we're going to start something in Dayton. And then I started going to school, and I finally graduated in 2020. And so, and then again, another interesting sideline was that I had went ahead and sent my paperwork in to lead a church in Pittsburgh, and unfortunately, that didn't work out. COVID came. There was financial challenges, so that didn't work out. So I remember sitting at my apartment Carnegie and going, okay, one of those, okay, what am I going to do now? And that's when I got a call from Robert Brzezinski, who had started New Thought Media Network. And I went ahead and I said, well, Robert, I really don't want to start another like teaching chapter, because the path of ordination in Centers for Spiritual Living is that, first of all, is that you graduate from the ministerial program. And then what happens is that then you go before what's called a licensing panel, which is 3 ministers. And then if approved, then you have a license. So how you get to the path of being ordained in our organization is that once you get a letter of call, then the clock starts ticking. So that's what happens. So so I said, Robert, I need to align myself with the ministry. And he says, well, align with us. And so that's what I've been doing, is that, working for New Thought Media Network, again, producing shows, producing my own show, doing what I love to do. I mean, it's interesting is that when you take a look at my show on Friday evenings, you see me smiling. So I think that that's a really good sign. I'm very grateful where I'm at in ministry, and that on that path, on that 3-year path, is not only do you have to have a sponsoring minister, but you also have to have a mentoring minister.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm very fortunate to have a wonderful mentor who we meet a couple of times a month. And that this is our 3rd year coming up, is that we go to a conference together. And it's not CSL. We go to what's called Theology Beer Camp. So we meet with other progressive Christians. And again, that, yes, there is a lot of day drinking. And, but, we go there to listen to other people express the divine. And so that's something, and we're going to be doing that this year. The conference is in Minneapolis, St. Paul. So we'll be going there. So, but as far as like with ministry goes, I'm extremely happy about what I'm doing. And again, you see me in the collar today. I'm getting ready to go do what you talked about, the weddings, to do a wedding up in Cleveland at Severance Hall, which is the home of the Cleveland Orchestra. So I'll be doing a wedding there this afternoon, but I usually do around 30 to 40 weddings a year. And that really helps me fund what I do with the New Thought Media Network. So, I occasionally get a check, but most of my funding is self-funded. So that really helps with the funding of what I do. I mean, I do receive a pension from what I did before, but again, from what I do in ministry, again, most of my money comes from doing weddings. So, yeah.
So there's been an interesting correlation. I think I could call it a correlation between what's going on in your head and what's going on in your heart. Absolutely. So there's all of these things that you needed to do from an intellectual perspective. But I don't think that it was the knowledge that necessarily moved you forward. I think that it was feeling.
Yeah. And so to talk about that, when I was talk about another kind of interesting turning point, was that when I finally graduated from Holmes, that I went to my dean, Reverend Dr. Cece Coltrane, and noticing that people were graduating around the country. And she said, she says, Holmes Institute is a distance learning program, and that there is no center anymore in Ohio. So we're going to send you your degree. And if you'd like to do a ceremony, you can do it on your own, or talk to Reverend Dr. Brzezinski. So, so I was able to what I did was I talked to my friends in INTA and at Christ Universal Temple, which is the house that Johnny built, Johnny Coleman, that during their conferences that they gave me my master's degree and also my certificate in ministerial leadership. That's now in CSL now, they have dropped the Holmes Institute programs, but they still are training ministers. So you receive, after your training, which is very extensive, you receive a certificate of ministerial education. I remember at the time, Reverend Dr. Edward Viljoen, who was our spiritual leader at the time. I remember him saying, as he was presenting me my degree at the conference, he said that the path to ministry, especially the education, gives the mind something to do while the soul is developing. And I think that that's true. You know, this is the path of ministry has been for me a path of growth, that I can go ahead and blame them out there for whatever's going on, but there's always three fingers pointing back at me. So it's what is going on in me? What needs healed in me? What needs to be let go in me? Because again, as within, so without, if we believe our teaching, this isn't about blame. This is about empowerment. So if I'm doing one of these, but there's three fingers pointing back. So I need to take a look at that. And for me, one of the things has been noticing how there's been a lot of burnout in ministry. People the average, from what I understand from talking with Reverend Nan Bankston, who's the head of our global services, that the average ministry of someone who comes out of our ministerial programs is 5 years. Now, I think there's a reason for that. My observation, again, is that for me, the lesson from that is I need to continue my spiritual growth. I need to continue my spiritual practice, which for me involves, I have several different readings that I do every day, including one of the things I've been doing for the past several weeks is the lessons from Emma Curtis Hopkins. There's 12 of them. So you read chapter 1 in the morning, and then you read chapter 7 in the evening or in the afternoon. So that's been a part of what I do. So I do readings, I do reflection, I do meditation. I really take care of myself so that I have something to give to other people, so that I can do what I do on the network, so that I can do the wedding, so that I can, again, come from my heart rather than from up here. So coming from my feelings of being able to say now, sometimes, I'm really pissed at you. And that, again, to be able to feel that, and then to be able to let that go and to forgive not only myself, but other people. See, that's when I first started leading our teaching chapter in Akron, I used to storm out of meetings. I push my buttons all the time. And I got taken aside by individuals and said, so one of your lessons here, Michael, is to learn how to respond rather than react. So when people do that you can come from a place of response, and that if you need to, maybe leave the room and come back to it a little bit later on. So for me, and again, that meant, again, processing anger, processing this whole idea. There was people that left our center that I thought were going to be there as I went to homes. They weren't there. So I had to process that anger to get it out. And it was interesting down the road was that a board president, before I left for Pittsburgh, somebody who remembered me back in 2000 said, "Oh, well, Michael's angry." And my board president said, "Oh, I don't notice that in him." So that again, that's the secret, I think, of the spiritual path is that, yeah, there are, like you and I talked beforehand, there are points of enlightenment. There are points that, again, that are on the path. However, that, and as I was saying before, in some traditions, especially the Zen tradition, is that, you come up or have a vision while you're in Zazen that, has the Buddha, that, you come up and you see the Buddha. Your meditation teacher says, "That's fine. Get back to your breathing." So that, I think that that's a part of it, though. I mean, you have experiences along the path, but don't get, for myself, is not get stuck in them, but to say, okay, that's nice, and to keep going. So I think that that's been the part of that I've learned in spiritual growth. But again, it's been the path of ministry for me has been a path of transformation. That when you say yes to it, you're not only saying yes to serving other people, but you're also saying yes to the path of really of being awakened, of really of working on you intently, so that again that you have something to share with your the people that come up upon your path, and that ministry itself has changed a lot over the past several years. That because of COVID, it's brought about again a change that many ministries are now online. So that's what I do, is I assist ministries online to be able to get the message out. Some have brick and mortar, some don't. So that's what I do mostly during the week, is I assist ministers again to help them get their message out there. And again, that's been extremely fulfilling. The two shows that I have on Sunday evening are two of the top rated shows on our network. And because again, not only again, wonderful talent, but I've been able to work with the talent to be able again to develop them, again, giving loving feedback and just saying, okay, if you feel that you've screwed it up, let it go. It's time to be able to do that. Because I think we live in a time where that, again, that the whole idea of ministry, again, I was trained brick and mortar, to take a pulpit ministry. But, I never thought that I'd be going back to, I mean, I was in broadcasting for a while, that I'd be going back to doing what I was doing. So now that's what I'm doing now, is helping other ministers. So that's my ministry. So,
when you talk about the idea of growth and the spiritual path, something that has always been an issue for me was the idea of, am I spiritual enough? And I remember saying that to a minister at one point, one of my mentors, and he said, "I've got news for you. Whether you think that you are as spiritual as you could possibly be, or you think that you're nowhere near as spiritual as you need to be, you're right and you're wrong." He said, "Spiritual doesn't change." He said, "Your view of who you are changes. Your ability to see your spirituality changes." So the growth is really an interesting thing. For me, it's a great deal of my growth has been release.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So if somebody came to me, I'd say, well, the truth is that you are as spiritual as you're ever going to be, because it's not God in you, it's God living its life as you. So that the path the spiritual path then is to, again, to release anything that covers that over. So, for some people, again, it's if you think you're at the top of the mountain, the only way the only way is down. So, so the whole idea of, again, of being, past spirituality versus event spirituality. Again, the emphasis in some churches, again, is event spirituality, and that, again, what the 12-step program talks about is, again, not just sobriety, but also sober living, really living soberly, which again has that whole path of transformation there. This weekend here in Akron, that we're invaded by 30 to 50,000 recovering alcoholics who are celebrating. We are the birthplace here in Akron, Ohio, the birthplace of Alcoholics Anonymous, where one former drunk helped another. Where Bill Wilson, who was in the area, a stock deal went sour. And so he said, from the Oxford group, he says, I need to go help someone else. And he found through the Oxford group, he found Dr. Bill Wilson, who was another hopeless drunk. And he was a surgeon too. Could you imagine him working on you? Being inebriated? But Bill, what happened was, again, it was one person working with another. And so that's what we're celebrating this weekend. The 12 steps are based on it's a spiritual path. It's a spiritual way of doing things. The whole idea of the 11th step, sought through prayer meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understand God, praying only for the knowledge of his will for us and the power to carry that out. Now, in 12-step in New Thought, again, that individuals, we interpret that as the will of God being good. So if the will of God is good, then again, that we need to align ourselves with that good. We need to align our thoughts with that good. And so that good then, again, guides us, directs us, shows us. The Emma Kursopkin says, my good is my God. My good is my God. Not that you worship your good, but that is what you want expressed in your life. My good is my God. So God is health. God is abundance, prosperity. God is peaceful relationships. God is all, again, uncovering that onion that's within us, that divine nature, which is the core of our being, and allowing that to express in the world. So.
Well, I am eternally grateful to the 12-step programs. Let me see, April 21st was 44 years for me.
Outstanding. Outstanding.
And one day at a time, because that's all you get. And it's what you're talking about in terms of sober living as opposed to sobriety. It's the same thing with, as far as I'm concerned, the idea of knowing about spirituality and living spiritually. I mean, you can study all of the religions in the world. You can understand every one of their precepts, but if you're not living with them, if you're not living by them and through them, there is a lot less that's of benefit to you and to others.
And the thought that came up as you were talking was, a big part of growth for me has been being in community. That when I'm in community, when I go ahead and I let the mask down, and that you really can see the things that, again, that are excellent, and also the things that I'm working on. But what happens is that when you build a bond of community, and again, a lot of the things that I've learned has been from CSL ministers, people taking me aside saying, okay, this is what we see. And this is how you're affecting people, especially with the anger in community back in 2000. You're at a choice to pick something else here. And so, again, it's been that loving feedback of people not only loving me the way that I am, but also being safe enough on my end that people feel safe enough to come up to me and say, I heard you say that. What, is that what you want in your life? Again, not in a mean way, not in a way of shame, but in a way of, again, of discovery. The whole idea of steel sharpens steel, that's from the Old Testament. I think that's one of the hidden things, I think, that a lot of people who just read the books, who just meditate, that they miss out on that whole idea of community. Whereas, again, that people outside of you can lovingly point out stuff. And again, that's one of the reasons why the 12-step programs work, is because, again, you have a sponsor and you have other people that are around you that's saying, I don't know, how's that resentment helping you? How good does that feel holding that resentment? Do you want to continue in that behavior? If you do that, then, more likely is you're going to go back and pick up. So those, again, that community type thing, I think that has been an extremely important part. And I love the community that I'm in here, even though that I work on the network, that our teaching chapter is still active, Summit Center for Spiritual Living. And we're still active on Sunday mornings, and summitcsl.org if you want to join us. There's the Zoom information there, shameless plug. But for me, being in that community of people who love me no matter what, who show up Sunday after Sunday, who are there to pray with me, to cry with me, to support me, that's been a great joy. That I think that some people, unfortunately, that they miss on the path. So that's my 2 cents about that, about community. So,
and I agree with you that even if we're online, we can't have community. And this has been, for myself, for example, being a part of the New Thought Media Network, we could just as easily have called it the New Thought Media Community, because that's exactly what it is. And the idea of being able to express not the principles, not the precepts, but the joy. That's a marvelous thing for me.
And that the whole idea of forming community. And I remember hearing it was a talk by Unity Minister Shad Groverland at an INTA conference that I was helping at. And Shad pointed out the whole idea of that social media is constructed to be very me-oriented and to create an atmosphere of isolation. And so what he was recommending was that we use social media, again, to get people into physical buildings. Now, myself, Reverend Dr. Robert, and we had another minister in the car, we're going back to the hotel, and we're having a discussion about our network, because that's what we do, is social media. And what we talked about was that we noticed that we online is that we form community, is that people are talking to other people in the comments, that individuals build, maybe not as close as relationships as churches, but they are building a relationship, and that to hopefully just steer them, to being involved in a brick and mortar community, or at least an online community like I am. So I think, again, the joy of community, the joy of being with other people, the joy of getting hugs, the joy of people just being their God essence by loving you unconditionally. That's the divine. The divine is unconditional love. It all boils down to that. So.
All right. Well, let me see. Is there anything else that we need to finish up here? I'll just ask this one question. If you think of all the various ways in which you've transformed,
okay,
is there any one thing that stands out as being the most joyful for you?
That's a good question.
I like to ask good questions.
I think, it's again that time when I knelt by the bed and just felt that unconditional love of spirit. I think for me, that was in and of itself, that was transformational. I mean, I had previous experiences of giving my life to God, like, for example, like back in high school, but it was different. It was like, it was like, okay, you were like the prodigal son. You went off and did your own way. And now you have found your way back. Again, welcome home. And that if you take a look at the Science of Mind textbook, is that in the back, that Ernest Holmes talks about the parable of the prodigal son, 10 pages of expository teaching or explaining the scriptures. And so I recommend any one of you to go ahead and to read Holmes's commentary about the prodigal son, because again, that one of the emphasis is that the father held nothing against the son who was coming back. He was just glad that they were there. So again, that's the unconditional love of spirit. So those are great chapters to take a look at and to read. So.
Very good. Very good. Thank you. So if people want to get in touch with you.
That's it. Pastor Michael Mangus at gmail.com. I know that many, I use the term reverend in CSL circles, but I still, my branding is still pastor. And I like that term. I mean, I call myself reverend again in CSL circles, but that's what I do as pastor. I assist individuals in their spiritual growth. It's not that I'm up there telling them what to do, but I'm along the path with them. And so to be supportive along the path. So because individuals have their own spiritual knowledge within them, they know what they need to do already in them. Now, they may tell you that they don't, and that's okay. I honor people wherever that they're at. But if I start asking a few questions, especially when I do counseling, if I start asking a few questions and start going down, different rabbit holes, different directions, that the questions are geared towards them getting their own answers. And I remember one of the weddings I did, without getting too much into it, is that I was called into a situation of an elopement. I went ahead and the bride was very ambivalent. She was just, I could tell that she was torn apart. And so what I did was, for 3 hours, I went ahead and just kept looking in her eyes and saying, what is your heart telling you to do? What is your heart telling you to do? And she was, again, the gaze was looking in my eyes of me telling her what to do. And I can't, and I told her, I can't tell you what you need to do, but I know where the answer's at. The answer is not up here. The answer is in your heart. So what happened was, the marriage that day was not done, the ceremony. She went back to Pennsylvania. She ended up dropping that relationship. And I get a text from her once in a while. And so that's one of the joyful, again, she already knew what she needed to do. And that all I did was to say, what's in your heart? Not what's in your wallet, but what's in your heart? What's your heart saying here? And so that's been a great joy to, and the reason I know that process is being around New Thought and CSL ministers who've asked me the same question.
Mm-hmm.
What's in your heart? What do you really want to do? And so that's been a real joy. Boy, an hour's flown by quick, huh?
I told you it would. And that's like the core of your pastor versus reverend, if you will. Because people often will go to the reverend for the answer, but the pastor asks the right question.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And that is absolutely where our lives make a difference. It's not the answers, it's the questions.
Right.
All right. Well, I want to thank you once again.
Oh, thank you.
It's been marvelous.
And thank you. Can I put up some of the comments?
Oh, please.
Okay. Well, hello there, Reverend Dr. Michelle Wadley. She says, maybe that's what a mystical experience looks like. And she said, great conversation. Thank you, beautiful men. Well, thank you, Reverend Dr. Michelle, for your light in my life, which has been tremendous. I'd like to say hello to Reverend Dr. Raymond Anderson. Good afternoon, sir. Good to see you also as you listen to, and Zoe, it is. But great conversation. Thank you, Zoe, very much.
My pleasure. My pleasure. All right, folks, I want to just remind you that these are your stories. So if there is anyone who would like to share a story, by all means, let me know. Okay, you can connect with me in this way at zodemiro@gmail.com. And I am available for practitioner sessions, for coaching, speaking engagements, discussion, or prayer. All right. Well, you go out there and go marry people.
Go marry people, yeah. So, yeah, thank you, Zoe. That was a great hour. Thank you.
Okay, and folks, always remember that you are loved and you are love. We'll see you again.